Hi, Mark here from the Tangent-Bound Podcast Network and host of the flagship show, the Tangent-Bound Podcast. Did you know that we over at Tangent-Bound are always looking for amazing podcasts to promote? And did you also know that we are also proud nerds and geeks of everything from movies, music, gaming, TV shows, and comic books to wrestling, MMA, soccer, and football? Whatever you can nerd or geek out about, we've got it. And if you're interested, we can help you find it. And if you're a show looking for a place to call home, we've got you covered. Side effects may include upset stomach, dizziness, tumors, shakes, and in some rare cases, death from excessive laughter. Though to be fair, it's only sometimes. Other side effects may include diarrhea, gallstones, heart palpitations, and strong desire for cookies on the dark side. Talk to your doctor and visit TangentBoundNetwork.com and see if Tangent-Bound Network is right for you.
We're not doctors, therapists, trained professionals of any kind, so if you feel you do need help, please reach out and get the help you need. We have a whole list of things on our files page over on Facebook at facebook.com/crazylifepodcast, and or just search on the internet for the suicide prevention hotline number, or go to NAMI.org or whatever resource you can find. But just please reach out for help if you need it. If you feel as though you're going to harm yourself or others, definitely reach out. And try not to be alone. Also, if you feel that way and you realize that you're writing a note or making plans of how you would do, like harm yourself or others, definitely reach out. That's a huge red flag. And lastly, please do not replace the idea of therapy with listening to this show. Again, if you need help, please reach out and get the help that you need, or contact us. We can try to help you find the help that you need.
Life sucks to the last drop. Are you gonna blow your head off? Take good aim and don't forget to duck. Life sucks every Monday and all the way to Sunday, but I wouldn't have it any other way. I don't care how you're doing, what's up or how's it hanging. I'd like to buy this world one last drink. Life sucks all of the time, so stick it up your sunshine, and then you'll see the clouds every day. And then you'll see the clouds every day. And then you'll see the clouds every day.
Welcome to the Crazy Life, everyone. My name's Jen. I am your hostess for the evening, and with me, as always, we have Brian and Henno. Hey, guys.
Howdy.
Hi.
The questioning, hesitant man is back.
Yeah.
The tentative guy.
Yeah.
Tentative guy.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I know the rules, so I know I have to start us off.
Yep.
So, I do apologize I wasn't able to be on the show last week, but I am very grateful to hear that you guys had a wonderful guest host in there, Hillary. I'm glad that you're able to join the guys. So thank you for filling in and doing that. So unfortunately, the reason I wasn't able to be on the podcast is we had a sudden death in my family. My brother-in-law, unfortunately, passed away. We are still waiting on toxology and stuff reports, but everything is pointing to that it was drug related, which was not expected. It was not known. And it was very heartbreaking. So unfortunately, we had to go through all that and are still going through everything with that. But I wanted to make sure that I let you guys know what was going on, because it just underlines for me even more so than ever before how important it is to get help, ask for help, reach out, don't take things for granted, and please, 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 please do not don't do the hard stuff. It's not worth it. Don't chase the dragons. And if you have dragons chasing you, get help. It's just those dragons, stay away from them. They're pretty, but you don't go there.
Yeah.
You don't want to go there. So please be safe and be careful out there, everybody. That being said, so I've been going through quite a lot over the last week, emotionally. I've done really well. I've made sure I stayed up with my medicine. I believe in every circumstance that my reaction was appropriate and on point with the situation, the right size for the right situation, as they say, which is all good things and things that I've struggled with in the past. So it was interesting because at the funeral, I should say after the funeral, my cousin came up to me and was talking with me, and she mentioned something that I shouldn't divulge confidences, but she was talking to me about things, and I mentioned back to her, I'm like, I'll be honest, everybody, I lost myself. I was sobbing. I was beside myself. He was a wonderful man and very dear to me. And I was not, I wasn't over the top or anything, but I was crying. I was sobbing quietly to myself, not, everything either. I had some decorum. I
but even
kept myself in control.
Even if you were doing that, it's, I don't know. There's still a level of, I think a lot of people expect that from a lot of people, like especially at a funeral. It's like if you're gonna sob like that, that's a, generally a pretty appropriate place to do it.
And I felt judged, even though I'm sure I wasn't being judged.
Yeah, you were. You were being judged by you.
Yeah, I was judging myself pretty harshly.
Remember a couple weeks ago when Heno was talking about his finances, and you were like, "Oh, well, no one's judging you," and he goes, "I was judging." It was that. It's the same thing applies right here. Because game recognizes game. I do it to myself all the time.
All I can think of is I'm like, who am I? I'm just a sister-in-law. Mm-hmm. Who am I to be losing my cool when his mother is holding herself together better than I am?
Yeah. Well, again, go back to my dad dying, and I walking around the house was sad and everything. But then people would notice I disappeared for a couple minutes because I'd go downstairs into the downstairs bathroom and just bawl my eyes out for like 5 minutes. And then I'd come back up and was like, "Oh, hey," it was like, it was just what I was and wasn't showing people. That's all.
It's the old don't compare your insides with other people's outsides.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I know, trust me, I know his mom's devastated and I know his dad's devastated and his brothers are, we all are. We all are just beside ourselves.
Sometimes people in those situations too don't, air quote, lose it because they're in shock still.
Yeah, and she is.
Yeah, sometimes it's just, I had that happen with a great aunt of mine that I was fairly close to years ago when she died, and it didn't seem to really bother me at all. And, then once we were at the funeral and, we went through the service at the cemetery and stuff, like once I got in the car, I just sat there and then everything just hit me at once. And I think it was just finally, it was over essentially. Like that was the finality, and then everything came rushing in on it. So sometimes that's the case too. It's not so much that someone isn't losing it or bawling or whatever. It's just, maybe it hasn't really hit them that way yet,
Yeah. And I'm sure that's it. I was trying not to overanalyze myself and just kind of let myself be, because quite frankly, I needed it. And the next day, even though I looked like I had gotten punched in the eyes because both of my eyes were swollen almost shut.
Yeah.
When I woke up the next morning, I felt better. I felt more at peace.
Yeah.
And that's the whole point. That's the whole purpose of it, is to find peace. And I did. So mission accomplished. It was very tough. It was probably tougher than my stepdad passing away because of the circumstances behind it.
Yeah. Well, also, like you notice, like when someone younger dies, we tend to also, like you've talked in the past, we mourn their potential.
Yeah. Exactly.
Like recently here in Toledo, there was a police officer that was investigating a guy at a Home Depot parking lot. The guy was drunk. The cop approached him. When he did, the guy basically didn't say a whole lot to him. He just pulled a gun on him and just shot him point blank. The guy was 23 years old. The cop was. And, you see that, and then they show pictures, he's got like 2 young boys, and it's like, geez, he's still a kid. He's 23, and it's like, you look at it, and it's like, it's such a shame, because not that it wouldn't be a shame if he was 40 or 50, but it's just like, you look and go, man, this kid potentially, should have, again, I'm air quoting like crazy here, should have had another 40, 50 years of life. And, so anytime someone younger is kind of, we see it as a robbery, whereas someone older, a lot of times where we tend to be more like, well, they had a long life, or they lived a good life, or, they had a chance to live at least, so that always adds to those younger ones. Plus, like you said, circumstances, because with your stepdad, you saw it coming. With this one, clearly you didn't, and whenever you're blindsided, it's a whole different ballgame.
Exactly. I mean, and by no means am I taking anything away from my stepfather's death, because
they're different, though. Is all.
Yeah, it was just a very different experience. Both of them were very different.
Yeah.
Just everything about them were completely different. So, and of course, and I managed them differently because they affected me differently.
Yeah.
And that's all.
Yep.
So it's hard to say. Looking back at the week, it's tough to even identify wins and losses and things, because it just all kind of blends together. There's just so much stuff that happened this week, and I won't get into details on the show, but it's just, there's so much stuff, and just emotional and physical, just going through everything, and just, you almost feel like you're trying to walk through quicksand, because it just keeps trying to grab you, and just kind of process and live in the moments, just kind of just trying to figure out the way through. But like I said, I'm getting there, and I'm working with my husband and helping him get there. It's not easy. We have another member of the family that's not doing very well health-wise. So we're got that on the horizon that we're working with and dealing with, and trying to put some sense behind that as well. So we're just under a lot of pressure right now, but I'll make it through. I always do. One foot in front of the other, and that's all we can do.
Yeah, it's true.
So that was my week.
Yeah. Yeah, funny.
How are you guys? Who wants to go next?
I will. This week's been a lot quieter for me, because it's been, especially for this area, like oppressively hot here this week. It's been near or over or around 100 almost every day, and we've had a bunch of humidity with it. It's just not, it's been just brutal outside for us.
Ew.
Like for me, I don't deal with this kind of heat and humidity very well. So like 10-15 minutes outside, and I mean, I feel different, like I can feel the effects on me. So I've basically tried to stay home and inside as much as possible this week because it's just, I just don't want to go out, let alone, I mean, it rained last night. I was out with my brother actually, cause we went, he had to go to the grocery store and I went with him. And, it was, God, what was it? It was still like, it was still like 85 or something like that, or 80. It was, but then with the humidity, it felt, actually, I think that's what it was. I think with the humidity, it felt like 85 or something. And this is like 10 o'clock at night, here, and I walk outside. By the time I get to the car, I've already got that like film of sweat on my arms. I'm like,
Nope.
and, it rained, but as we're coming out of the store, it was raining, not real hard, just a kind of
But
a
still,
drizzle.
it's raining and it's 100.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that was what was funny though, is, normally, you think of rain as being like cooling, but this rain was hitting me and I'm like, this is warm.
Yeah, warm rain.
Exactly.
Dang it, why couldn't it be a cooling rain? That would have been awesome. But, and of course,
Ew.
it's because it was just humid, so everything was so blah, But, and anyway, so the way that correlates to me mostly is, it wrecks my sinuses. Just humidity just ruins my sinuses. So I've had a few headaches, but I've also been very congested all week. And, I take allergy stuff and whatever, and it basically, it felt, even though I know if I wasn't taking it, it'd be worse, it felt like I wasn't taking it almost, this week. It was so brutal outside. So, but again, luckily, again, I, recognize I'm lucky enough that I live in a place that, air conditioning that works well, and we stayed pretty much in the air. And the part where it gets really difficult, is like cooking, because any use of the stove adds 10 degrees to the house or so, and it's no joke. I mean, it's that fast, luckily. So what I've been doing is I've been using my air fryer and my Instant Pot for making various stuff, because those don't heat up the whole room. They just heat themselves up, and that's basically it. So I've been doing that, and, we've eaten out a little more than normal because it's so hot, but that's been about it. Like, really, I really haven't, because first of all, there's not really anything for me to go do. I'm very much trying to stay home to help protect myself as well as the people I live with from potentially getting, exposed to coronavirus. But there's also just, I don't have anything to go do, because I'm not going to go to a party or gatherings or any of that stuff. I don't want to go to restaurants. So I'm kind of like, I stay home, and, I've gotten some stuff done here that I've wanted to get done and whatever, but it was just a matter of, it's odd because I'm comfortable with it, because of the whole like agoraphobia that I have. So I'm very much like, stay inside, but, also it's weird how going to like the store feels like a jailbreak, like, like, woo, I'm out of the house. Yeah. And it's like, calm down, dude. You're just going to the,
You're just going to the grocery store.
Just going to Target or whatever. Yeah. So,
it's just a pizza run.
Yeah.
I went back to work this week. I forgot to mention that. But,
oh yeah, like actually, like in person, or like at your work,
in the
right?
office.
Yeah.
Yeah, I went in the office on Tuesday. Was my first day in the office. So weird.
Oh, I bet that's what you missed it last week, Jen, when I was talking about going to the urgent care with my mom. Was walking into that building, and I'm looking around, and I'm like, this feels weird. Like, this feels wrong. Like, I shouldn't be here, kind of a thing. So yeah, I get it. It was, it was like the first time I went to Tony's house was like that too. Like we're hanging out in his backyard and we're distanced and everything, but it was like, this feels wrong. I feel like we're getting away with something.
Freaking some rules.
Yeah.
It was just weird. I mean, they have this stand that you have to go, because we have double set of doors. One's for in, one's for out. There's big old, dividers between them. So you go in the indoor, and then you have to stop and stand in front of the scanner that scans you and make sure then tells you what your temperature is.
Wow. All right. Wow.
And
So they don't just have some grunt with a handheld doing it, huh?
Nope.
Wow.
There's a whole standing thing
Dang.
that you stand in front of it, and it takes, you center yourself, and then it'll flash up on the screen what your temperature is.
I'm just picturing you standing there, and they're like, center yourself, and you're like,
Yeah,
you're trying to meditate. Yeah.
Meditation. Close your eyes.
They're like, we said center yourself. I'm trying.
Well, then you have to wear your mask unless you're sitting at your desk. And then my desk had quarter panels around so that I could, talk to people or whatever I need to. Well, they took the quarter panel and they added plastic to it.
Yeah.
So this clear plastic that goes up, another foot.
Oh, nice.
into-
You got boards you can put people into now.
Yeah. So basically, I look like I'm in a penalty box because I'm sitting there with this plexiglass all around me at my desk.
You are, Jen. That's what work is.
So that's different.
Yeah.
And we have one-way walkways because we have like a circular walkway that goes around the building.
Yeah.
So to get to the bathroom that's catty corner to my desk, I have to walk all the way around.
You have to do the old Michigan left turns, huh? Like walk 10 miles past it and then turn around and come back to it?
Pretty much.
Oh, jeez.
There's no coffee. There's no ice.
That makes
There's
sense.
no refrigerators. There's no microwaves. There's no store for us to purchase anything. So
Jeez.
anything, unless I want water,
Mhm.
that's the only thing I can get. Everything else I have to bring. So any food items, any drink items, anything else I have to bring with me.
Wow.
So which is
Now,
interesting.
out of curiosity, could you put a Keurig at your desk? Would they allow that?
No electronic.
Okay.
We're not supposed to put anything in
I'm just
because of fire issues.
Baloney. They just don't want to pay the extra electricity. No.
Probably.
Yeah. Man.
But yeah.
So that's
we're not
rough
allowed
then.
to-
How are you doing with the coffee then?
Yeah.
Because I know you
Not
like
so
to
good.
drink 6-7 pots a day. So.
I do. And it's a struggle because I can usually get 2 cups before I go to work, and then I have a thermos that I filled with coffee, but that usually
Alright,
lasts me till around noon.
Because
Good enough.
she just drinks right from the thermos too. It's like,
Exactly.
So I ended up buying some energy drinks that I can use.
You know
in
they
the
make
afternoon.
like a thermos that's like a gallon, right?
I do, yes.
Buy one of those. You picture somebody walking into work and you just seeing that and like, geez. Like, I hope that's water.
I do have one that is supposed to be for water, but it's pretty darn huge.
Yeah,
That I probably could use if I really wanted to.
Right.
But
Oh my goodness.
we'll see how all that goes. And I'm a smoker, for those of you who don't know.
Boo.
I-
Boo.
Yeah, I know.
All right, guess
But-
what? You're being shamed
I'm
and judged
being judged.
right now. Just in case you weren't feeling it,
Judge.
I want to let you know.
Yeah. That we were very subtly.
Judging me. I
Not
get
so
you.
subtly.
Not so subtle. Yeah.
Well, since I've been home, I've been smoking a little bit more than I normally would because when I'm at work, I can't smoke. I can't smoke on the campus,
Right.
on my work's campus.
Yeah.
And so I don't leave the campus during
Wow.
my
Wow.
work day.
I didn't know. So they're a smoke-free campus too, huh?
Yep.
Wow.
So I have to leave the campus to be able to smoke.
Hmm.
So I don't from pretty much 7:45 in the morning to 4:30 in the afternoon. I go at work without having a cigarette.
Nice.
Oh.
Yeah, so come 4:30, I am pretty dozing.
You just light a pack up. Yeah.
I get my car and I'm like, oh, time to light.
Yep.
But yeah, so that's been interesting.
Oh, I so would not want to work with you.
Well, especially right now, Henno, they're making her cut back on her coffee too.
I know. This is what I'm saying.
Yeah. How do you expect me to work without stimulants?
No caffeine, no nicotine. I'd be like,
Yeah. Well, I mean, she could start chewing gum,
Yeah, except I have a misophonia person next to me.
Oh, good for them. Yeah, no. I was going to say, you're going to be like Mark Maron. Maron switched to those, I forgot what they were called. It wasn't he used the gum, but there was something else. But he basically got to where he realized he was like developing a habit for whatever he was. Yeah, it wasn't a patch. It was something else. I can't remember.
Something else. I
Yeah,
can't remember either,
but he was using it and then using more and more and more, and then was like,
Oh, gotcha.
I have a problem here. So.
Yeah. So yeah, my poor coworker. We have a pen clicker. I'm a heavy key hitter, especially with my nails. If my nails are longer, you hear the tap 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 of my keys.
Oh, geez.
I mean, she's got. I'll just all of a sudden feel her eyes, because she sits behind me, and I'll just feel her eyes.
Can she wear like headphones or anything? Okay.
Yeah, that's what she does a lot of times.
I was going to say, not as a person with that, not that it, necessarily stops it, but it certainly helps,
Yeah. She had a gum clicker or gum snapper next to her that she finally had to have that conversation. She's like, I'm sorry, but you gotta quit snapping your gum.
Yeah.
Wow, there's just nothing about this situation that sounds like it's remotely enjoyable.
Well, that's why it's work, That's why it's not called play.
Yeah, we get to sit there for 9 hours, pretty much,
and try not to kill each other.
Torture either.
Yeah.
We got an air handler that's not too far from our desk that sounds like a cricket's chirping every so often, and makes all sorts of wonderful sounds.
Nice.
That's fixable.
Yeah,
I
hammer
do it every day.
Right. Yeah, just take a hammer and beat it until it stops. No,
it's true. Sometimes you do. You take a hammer and hit that piece of metal that's chirping.
Yep. As long as you don't apply that to your coworkers. If they keep chirping and you apply a hammer to them, they might get in trouble for that.
So I just kind of commandeered your spot, Brian.
No,
Sorry
it was
infinitely more entertaining.
Oh, it was, because I'm pretty much done. I was basically just taking an hour to say how boring my week was. So,
and we haven't even made it a week.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's only been since Friday, and I've done nothing. So,
gotcha.
Sweet.
No big fourth plans?
No, I spent the 4th basically in bed all day because of my headache. So, yeah. Which, by the way, I got to tell you how soothing fireworks all freaking day are for a migraine. It's pretty awesome.
Yeah,
Let me tell you.
I bet that was fun.
I put headphones, like literally like the ones I use for this. I put headphones on and turned on sound to try to drown out those, and I couldn't. My headache was so bad I couldn't even tolerate that sound. So I just it was brutal. So anyway,
yeah, it sucks.
Yeah. So how about you, Henno? How was your week?
First, I want to say thank you again for Hillary for jumping on, because
yes,
when you're diagnosed as suffering from anxiety and depression, and someone says, "Hey, you want to jump onto a podcast with, that we're doing in 15 minutes?
Well, here's what it's like. Hey, do you want to do something you've never done before, essentially, with a person you've never met before? And
and in front of a microphone with the headphones on, all I have to say is win.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Huge win.
I agree.
Huge win.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that alone was just so I threw it out there because I didn't want to be rude.
Listen, we've done millions of podcasts at this point, and if somebody called me and did that, I'd still be like, you know, like, and this is
Yeah.
essentially kind of second nature, but I would still be like, right now, you know,
You mean now? Here?
maybe, yeah. So
I thought that was awesome.
I agree.
Yeah, we had a great time.
Mhm.
There was a little weekend getaway, so it was cool to be able to provide that in a way that was safe.
Yeah.
I did have some friends come in from out of town. They're moving to Montana. They're from California, and it was one of those ones where we were all good with our masks and stuff where we needed to wear them. But when I saw Tom, I mean, I'm giving Tom a hug.
Yeah.
I don't care. I haven't seen him I don't think the last time I saw him and talked to him was before I moved from California. So other than a little, hey, like your post on Facebook, I haven't had any connection with him at all. And he's someone that is he's important to me.
Yeah.
And so it was worth it. I didn't have a problem with it. Had a great just catch up. And that was awesome. Continuing on, most of the weekend went to cleaning up the house in preparation for, some guy to drive from who knows where to walk around it for 15 minutes and then tell me how much it's worth. Otherwise known as appraisal. But it's been good because it's getting things fixed. Like I was going back through old emails because I was looking for some information. So, all right. Oh, I'm missing the good part. That's right. So I'm using the same loan agent that I used when I bought my house. And buying my house ended up being great for me, but was a nightmare because this was right after our Great Recession and all the laws were changing about home lending.
Right. Yeah.
Because of what happened,
Sure.
right? Because we had a foreclosure issues and crisis. And
yeah, they were trying to close that window. Yeah.
And it was all these changes that were being made with how appraisals are done and blah, blah, blah. And so a lot of these things, a lot of it was brand new and not everybody knew all the details. And there was a lot of crushing moments. And it was I've talked about it many times about the level of anxiety I had. So I get when I had done my seconds and stuff through my bank, they cover the appraisal. Well, they don't, they're not covering it. I have to pay for it.
Yeah.
And so I get the email saying, okay, now it's time to pay for your appraisal. So I click on the link and it brought up the appraisal management company from the first loan. And I honestly had a moment of PTSD.
I bet. Yeah.
I saw the name and I was like, ugh. Like I just had this I paused and I was a little shocked at the effect. It's just a name.
Yeah.
But it brought me back to that period of time.
Right.
And it was funny because what happened today was I got an email from the loan agent saying, well, they want more money because they're from Utah, the appraisal management company. So I don't know if they have certain people that they use or however it works, but the person's from out of town and wants extra money to drive all the way up here and back, which is understandable.
Yeah.
We're up in the mountains.
Right.
And I just sat there and I said a response back to Sean. I'm like, okay, so my PTSD at seeing the name was plenty warranted because here we go again.
Right.
But he said they're cutting their they're cutting their fee by 30%, it to compensate for it. And I'm just like, okay, I mean that, I get it. It's no big deal. I put it on a credit card because part of refund my credit card debt.
Right.
So it's going to be part of the loan anyway.
Right.
But yeah, it was a funny little moment where I was like, wow, I had a reaction to that.
Right.
It meant something. But yeah, it was a nice weekend and we got to have a parade. It was just done differently. Instead of everyone lining up on Main Street next to each other, they ran the parade down through the neighborhoods in this circuitous path. But what it allowed, isn't it? It allowed everyone to basically sit in front of their house or walk a block down.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
and stand on sides, and there's a lot more room in people's front yards. So part of the reason for doing it on Main Street is it brings a ton of business to Main Street.
Sure. Yeah.
That's why the city pays for a parade.
Right.
It puts people into restaurants and stuff like that.
Mm.
Well, this is not the time to, think about it's, your Chamber of Commerce is doing their job by bringing people down. Well, now's not the time to do that.
Right.
So they did it in the neighborhoods, which it's kind of like the Chamber of Commerce really not doing what they're supposed to do, but any business that has an issue with it, I wouldn't say anything.
Right. Given the state of affairs, it's
Yeah,
a
the
good
press
choice.
probably wouldn't be so good for you.
Right.
Mhm.
Yeah, like we found out that there was a place in Idaho that actually on the receipts, it's a restaurant, had a COVID-19 fee.
Really?
Yes.
Wow.
So is that, I'm assuming that's to make up for the potential lost, like, table spaces or?
Whatever it is, the money
Why?
that from the downtime or whatever, but you think that didn't hit
Oof.
social media in a heartbeat with that business's name?
Man, I bet
I mean,
that
come on.
went over like a brick.
Wow.
Yeah.
Oh, it was, someone took a picture of that receipt,
Oh, man.
posted it, and it went everywhere. And it's some tiny little nowhere town.
Ah,
Yeah. That kind of stuff. But I was really happy with I'm really proud of our town again, and we had our fireworks display,
Mm.
which they do the fireworks down at, it's called the community center, but it's tied to the high school, so there's so much space.
Right.
And the good news is my neighbor across the street cut their trees down a few years ago before they sold the house, so Sharon can basically lie in her bed and watch the fireworks.
Oh, nice.
Oh, cool.
Which is great. So.
Yeah.
And it was a really nice fireworks display, and it was a good weekend. The scary part was getting our local paper today and opening up to the part where it talked about the amount of tourists we have in town, and
Yeah.
it said "scary amount" in quotations.
Oh my.
Wow.
That was the
Oh no.
the kind of the sub headline.
Yeah.
So yeah, we had mask ordinances go into effect.
Yeah.
Either ordinances or resolutions, depending on whether they wanted to enforce or not, because it's not the locals. We've
Right.
been, we were a hot spot long enough. We're all pretty well behaved, for the most part. Of course, we have a section in our local paper. It's called the Miscellany, and it's where people can basically send in something about the guy that cut you off on the road and the person that's sleeping with your ex, or about your opinion on masks.
Oh my
and so the Miscellany is just full of that kind
So
of stuff right
it's
now.
basically almost like a dirt sheet, like a rumor mill kind of thing.
In a way, yeah. It's pretty amusing. It's
Oh,
funny
man.
when you do.
It's got to be a
something
fun
and you try to
read,
figure-
though.
Oh yeah, it's a great read.
Oh, I
It's-
bet.
When I open the paper, the first thing I do is go to the Miscellany to read what's going on in there, who's in there.
Right.
The next thing I go is to the legal and civil dispositions, because then you see everyone that got arrested or who's being sued, so you know
Wow.
who not to do business with and who's going to show up in your next AA meeting.
There you go.
Enough, right?
And so yeah, the mask thing went into effect because it's the tourists. I almost
Yeah.
used the derogatory term that I
Mm.
use for tourists. Let's just say I combine tourist and moron.
Ah, okay.
That's fair.
Nice.
You're right,
But it's
though.
been a
In a
great-
lot of those areas, that really is what's the
Mm-hmm.
problem. And like you said, that was what caused your area to be a
Well,
hot
that's
spot in the first
exactly.
place.
That's what somebody posted. Like, do you all remember how this started up here?
I said that to
Tourists.
somebody. I said that to my mom yesterday. I said, I'm watching the stuff on the news and they're talking about different things, and I'm like, is this Groundhog Day? Did we not already do this? Like, I feel like we're kind of doing what we did 3 months ago. Like,
Mm-hmm. Going backwards.
right?
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And then I had an interesting epiphany when I was talking to my friend Tom, who was visiting, and he asked me when I was going to retire. And I'm just like, retire? What's that? He's worked for Chevron for like 40 years. He's the union, the shop steward or whatever. I mean, he has a pension.
Right.
And I'm just like, yeah, I don't have that, but it's okay. But all of a sudden it hit me. I was like, oh, whoa, if I wipe out all my debt, I don't have to work at my job anymore.
Yeah.
And
well, you don't have to work at that place. Like you still have to work though, right? Like you're not to pay that off, obviously, but you just wouldn't have to work where you work, right?
Yes.
That's what you're saying? Okay. Just clarifying for myself.
I hear. Oh, sorry. That's me. I was like, where's that music coming
from?
Oh,
I didn't even hear anything. So
I was like, what? Driving me nuts. All right. Yeah. And that's what it is for those of you who have been faithful listeners of The Crazy Life, I thank you.
Yeah.
You've heard me talk many, 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 many times about the issues at work. And one of the reasons that I suck it up is because I need my income to service my debt. And if I no longer have that debt to service, I no longer need that income. So I could go find a job somewhere where I might be a little more happy. Now, everything's actually pretty good right now. It has been for a while. However, our general manager retires next year, and who knows what's going to happen after that. So it'll be nice to start slowly getting my ducks in a row so that if I need to, I can go move on. And the other thing I did is I went to the general manager of the health club, who actually happens to be on our board of directors as part of our human resources committee. And I not so subtly told him that I would like a job with him if it gets bad. And it wouldn't be easy because there's been a little tension in the past about, one person stealing employees from somebody else.
Yeah.
But the other part of it is to let him know that if things go weird when the general manager leaves, this is what's going to happen.
Yeah.
But it was so liberating to feel like I'd love to have a choice again.
Yeah. Yeah. Options are nice. Feeling like you have options is always much better than feeling like you're pigeonholed or something into one situation.
Because I'm, as much as, I know people and I respect their decisions, they are willing to work their job, however it is, to get that retirement money. And then someday, I get that.
Yeah.
If that was my focus, I would do that. It's like, just suck it up, make the money, and then retire someday. But realistically, it's not something it's actually something that I don't want to do. I like working. I like using my hands. I like being useful to people. And I could totally see myself finding a nice, comfy little place that I can, futz around and when I'm 60 something years old and I'm the guy that fixes stuff there, wherever it is, whatever it is. So it's been fun to talk about the future in a way that has options and like kind of hopeful goals or visions or however it is. So,
well, like you said, to where you can have your choices there and not be like, well, I have to do whatever it is I'm doing to service this debt.
Yeah.
Like it might be a different debt or whatever, but it's, but that's fine if it gives you that feeling of options. Like I said, options, can be, it clearly gave you, some hope with that,
Yeah, because
I love that word choice.
Yep.
Yeah. Yep. That's a Jen touchstone word right there.
It is. It's one of my favorite words. Choice.
Choice can be anxiety.
Yeah.
Triggering. But in this particular case, it gives me a sense of relief and it gives me a good feeling.
Right.
Awesome.
Yeah,
well,
so
good.
It's been a pretty good half a week.
Good.
That's awesome. I'm glad to hear it. So tonight, I have the article for us. And it's time to stop fixing because they need the struggle. So we're going to talk about fixers. We delight in the beauty of the butterfly, but rarely admit the change has gone through to achieve that beauty. By Maya Angelou. A quote by Maya Angelou. I've always been a fixer. I like to fix people's problems. Someone's feeling down and out. Let me fix it by trying to take away their pain. Someone's on the wrong life path. Let me fix it to get you back on track. Someone I love making unhealthy life decisions? Let me fix it so they can be happier. Fixing people made me feel good. It made me feel needed and purposeful. It made me feel like I was making a difference. But sometimes this led me to being a martyr. Are you a fixer? Being a fixer, you most likely are an empath. You're able to put yourself in someone else's shoes and want to take away any pain they're feeling because you feel it with them. Being a fixer, you often drop what you're doing to help one another. Being a fixer, you often feel guilt around saying no, around disappointing someone. Being a fixer, you're often hard on yourself for not helping enough, not being good enough, or not being able to fix perceived problems. Being a fixer, you often attract people who may take advantage of your heart and willingness to help. Being a fixer, you may have traits of being a martyr. Healthline defines a martyr as a person who sacrifices their own needs and wants in order to do things for others, sometimes helping others out of obligation or guilt, which leads to feeling of resentment, lack of appreciation, or anger. I learned I was living in an unhealthy martyr mindset when I started recognizing that I was resenting fixing all the time and putting myself last. When I began to feeling underappreciated and not recognized for the sacrifices I was making. When I noticed I felt guilty if I didn't fix someone and fearful that if they didn't say yes all the time, they wouldn't love me. I don't know. What do you guys think? Are you guys fixers?
Oh, I totally am.
Yeah.
I'm very much that way. Like if there's a situation where I think I can help somebody, I usually will try. I do it all the time. I think it's the reason why I'll see people on Twitter, post about depression or anxiety or something like that, and I'll reach out to them. As a lot of it with me, it's based in how I don't want someone else to deal with the stuff I've had to deal with, so if I can save them any of that trouble, I try really hard to do it, but it's also because I feel bad for the situation. Like I said, cause I know what it's like to go through this or this, and, so I'll reach out and, try to help somebody.
I don't think my motivation was actually ever out of wanting to be helpful. I think it was always out of this idea of feeling slightly superior from a self-centered kind of self-righteous standpoint.
Gotcha. Sure.
It wasn't to be, I didn't want to be insulting, but now I learned that in a way I was. And it was especially when it came down to something like, girlfriend comes and says, bounced a check or something like that, or something happened, financially, and I go into this reason how you can make sure that doesn't happen again.
Right.
When that person just wanted to download a little bit about their frustration at bouncing a check, or, the ATM. Like the ATM grabbed my card and didn't let go because I had overdrawn the account or whatever it was. And that was the place that went on. I just can't, the people that I had those interactions with didn't know how to express to me. I mean, I'm sure we just ended up with a lot of fights, right? Because that person didn't know how to express to me what I was doing. But it was years later that I learned that sometimes someone just wants to share their frustration, and it's something that I try to practice with Sharon. Sometimes I do. I'm okay. Sometimes I'm not, where they just want to express their frustration at something. They don't need to hear someone give them a solution.
It's funny as you say that. I really started thinking back into my formative years, essentially. And I think realistically that's probably where mine comes from too, because I think it was kind of ingrained in me. Although now I think it's because of, like, I really do want to help people. We've talked, like, doing this podcast, like I'm hoping people can hear this and things help people. And when I talk to them about depression or anxiety and stuff now, I really am trying to help them not be like, I'm hoping I can help them skip the line, basically, like instead of like me waiting for years and years and years to go get help. I really am wanting people to do that. But for a long time after I think about it, it's like I probably was doing the same thing, Henno. I really do think I was. Yeah.
I have enough of a codependent side of me to recognize there's the part of me that wants to be helpful to people, and those side effects that you mentioned, Jen, about those parts where it's like it comes from a sense of altruism and there's a desire to, because that's the people pleasing part and all that stuff. But I think when I really look at it, it's the part where the fixing part comes from a control aspect.
Yep.
And that's the other part of codependency.
That's
codependency
where mine
is
came
usually
from.
That's the true motive.
Yep.
Behind your or my altruism. And like the one place where I really got to practice it a lot was when I'm working with other people in sobriety, and let's say somebody has a relapse, is some people believe that you now give that person rules and tell them what they need to do differently now, and that you have to do this, this, and this. Whereas a good friend of mine suggested, well, why don't you ask them what they're going to do different this time? Because what they did the first time didn't work, clearly. So what are you going to do differently this time?
Yeah.
Don't tell them what they should do. Ask them. And then maybe they'll ask you. And then when they ask you, it is no longer unsolicited advice.
Right.
It is solicited advice. They're asking you for your help versus I'm expressing what happened and I gave them the solution.
Yeah.
There's a difference between talking with someone and talking at someone.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Right.
Or for someone.
Or for someone.
Yeah, definitely.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right.
So you have to find that balance. I consider myself a semi-reformed fixer.
I like this.
I have a lot of, I am a fixer by nature. I am also an empath, so they weren't too far off on that either.
Yeah.
I have gotten to the point where I've gotten much better than I ever have been in the past at letting people just sitting and listening. It's a skill that I've been working very hard on, and not trying to fix and just letting them be in that moment, letting them have their place, to grow and to learn, and just be by their side and just kind of help them along their path, but also just keeping my distance and letting them walk the path that they need to walk. It's not easy. It's very difficult for me. And in some cases, I have to remove myself from the situation because it's too difficult for me not to want to jump in and just fix it all and take care of everybody and take care of everything. But, I just had this conversation with just a good friend of mine today. It's like, I respect the fact that you need to walk the road alone, but I just have to let you know that I am always here. It's like, I was compelled. I must let you know that I will be a safety net if you need me.
Yeah.
But I will respect the fact that you need to walk alone. I don't like it was the underlining message. It's like, I wish that you would rely on me and call on me to help you and help fix things, but I'm not going to. I'm just going to respect it and I'm going to accept it. But it's hard.
So
that's what I say.
Well, the hardest is always when you can clearly see them walking right into a trap, and you're like, because it's like, I know if I nudge you, I can keep you from, but it's like sometimes like parenting, I think it's, not that I'm a parent, but, I've seen it enough times. It's like sometimes parents just got to let the kid fall, because sometimes you just got to learn the lesson yourself,
Because I had a mentor that used to always tell me what I should do. and how to do things. And I ignored it all the time. And then I turned around and I was the biggest hypocrite.
Right.
I just wanted to figure things out for myself.
Yeah. That's my thing too. I was always I'll be smarter than that. Like growing up, because the youthful arrogance of, but I'm not stupid like you were. As I walk right into the same wall.
One thing that happened for me this week was I've been asked to help. We have a long-term renter at work. And this was my win for the week. And she is almost 90, I'd say. Amazing. Has a caretaker. Mm. Another lovely, lovely lady. Both of them have been really awesome to work with. But I know, I've heard my general manager on the other end of the phone with her. And I literally have to walk out of the room. Because he is not having a good time on the phone, and he has a tendency to overtalk and to mansplain. For those of you that don't know what mansplaining is, there's womansplaining too. So look it up. It's equal opportunity. But
mansplaining is generally a version or a way of talking down to a woman. That's usually what, and that usually does not get good responses.
But it's the same thing it's almost fixing,
yes.
Right? There's a lot of mansplaining in fixing.
Yeah.
There, especially when it comes from the holier than thou, self-righteous, I know more than you, I'm your elder, however you want to place it. Mm-hmm. That seeps into it and becomes part of what mansplaining is. Yeah. So there's an email for me saying at 11 o'clock you're expected at this unit to help. I got the telephone. You need to finish installing the phone in their unit, and I was like, I don't want to do this. It's it's so difficult. And I get over there, and I just kept telling myself over and over again, don't mansplain, listen. Don't mansplain, listen. Set boundaries. So they let me do what I needed to do. And I said, this is where, I started setting things up, and right off the bat is, can we do this somewhere else? And I just said, no, that cannot be installed here. And then I was quiet and let them talk. And eventually she came to an even better solution that I would have never have gone to if I had started controlling the situation. Mm-hmm. And even her helper, whatever you want to call, I mean, to me, they're just friends, but she even apologized. Because she was trying to start, she started doing it like, well, what about here? What about here? What about here? And she didn't want to hear it. She said, it's not that she knew what she wanted, but she knew what she didn't want.
Right.
And then it was just a matter of giving her an opportunity to say, well, what if we did this? And I turned and I said, that's a great idea. It ended up being an easier job for me. The whole thing went easy. Nice. And then when it got to the part which nobody likes with I go through with my mom, and she's gotten so much better. I'm really proud of her for this, is the technical aspects of thing. And then I said, well, let's look in the remote and see if we can do this. Can I have another ringer on the phone?
Yeah.
Well, I don't know. Let's find out.
Right.
And then there were some things where I did some subtle hints, or I maybe framed something in a way. But again, I allowed myself to be willing to do what was asked, even though I might make a suggestion. And it felt so good when I walked out of the room, because I felt like it's one of the things that I want to work on more with my friends when I'm having conversations is, the whole idea of waiting your turn is to be silent, like I wasn't listening. I was just waiting for my turn, or I'm interrupting them, is to actually be silent and let them speak and let them be finished before I actually it makes me feel better when they say, are you still there? because I say,
Yeah.
yep, I am. I'm just listening.
Just listening, right?
Like, but unfortunately, I don't do it I especially don't do it with my really close friends. I mean, Brian and I get going, we're just, practically talking over each other
Yeah.
because we're so excited to be
Right.
talking about the topic.
Yeah.
But when you're in a serious conversation about something, it can be a little insulting, and so that's why it felt so good to just be quiet and to listen and to make some suggestions and to implement solutions and to walk out of there feeling like, yeah, I nailed that one.
Yeah.
And it felt great.
It would be nice, like, for conversation purposes, if we had a way to, like, you can if you have, like, a notepad next to you or something, but, it'd be nice if we had a way of, like, pinning mental notes, because, like, with me, sometimes somebody will be talking and it's like, well, I don't want to interrupt, but it's like, ooh, I have something that I really want to say here, that I think would be helpful or relevant or whatever. And it's like, but I don't want to interrupt. So it's like in my head, I start going into a thing where I keep repeating the thing to myself.
Yeah.
And by doing so, I've now divided my attention, so now there's no way I'm paying as good of attention as I was, so it's nice. Like when we talk on here, a lot of times I'll jot something down in my notes, or on my notepad here so that I can remember to bring it up later or whatever. That way I can immediately put the thought out of my head and try to listen, whatever. And I guess, but I'm not going to walk around all the time, like, with my notepad and, as we're talking, just keep jotting things down. People are like, what are you, a reporter? Like, but it would be nice if we had a way mentally to be able to just pin something and then just easily recall that no problem later when it's our turn to talk, instead of trying to just, because a lot of times I think that's why, interruptions happen, is because people are like, ooh, and you want to say it before you forget it or you whatever else, because it does stink when you have a thought that you think could be helpful in a scenario, you keep talking and then you're like, oh, I was going to say something and I can't, now you're spending 20 minutes trying to remember that one thing you couldn't, you wanted to say.
Well, that's where when I was doing therapy and also from the book Codependent No More, there were good suggestions about how to have conversations like this or to receive a conversation like this by using a little bit of extra communication beforehand. And one of them was to say, okay, do you just need to download right now? Or are you looking to work out what happened, a solution to what happened?
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And the person says, right now, I just want to download. Then it's like, cool, I'll just listen.
I got to where on the other side of that, I think it's also very helpful if you approach a situation, like if me and Henno are going to, well, a good example, a few weeks ago, I approached both of you to where, like when we were talking, before we recorded or whatever, I need to ask you guys. Right?
Mm-hmm.
Like I immediately posed it as I need help, please help me kind of a thing. And I've done that with people a few times where I'll just be like, I just need to vent. And I'll just, I've done that with Tony. Him and I have talked where we'll, I'll just be like, man, I just need to vent. Sorry for blah. And he's like, nah, cause we, you need it sometimes, but I'll try to set it up that way. That way he knows I'm not necessarily like, basically all he's got to do is provide the ums and yes and uh-huhs and, you go girls and all that kind of stuff that I need. So, I think that's helpful too. Like, we've talked on here plenty of times about communications, and that helps in a lot of ways too, because then, now granted, there are a lot of people who are still going to overstep that boundary. Like if you are just like, I just need to vent, they're going to still try to control or help, in that scenario. But
because
like,
they haven't learned.
Right. But for me, and like Jen was saying about trying to get better about this, it's really helpful if you come in going, hey, this is the intention I have. And I think for a while it was kind of demonized that if you just call somebody and like, hey, I need to vent, it was basically a way of saying like, hey, I don't care about your opinion. I just need to dump on you, and it's like, yes, but we all need that. So like, if I call you and say, hey, I need to vent, I'm the kind of person that also understands that if you call me saying that, I'm going to sit there and let you vent. Like it's reciprocal.
Yeah.
Sure.
also going to therapy really helps with this too, because like that actually gives you an opportunity, a dedicated place to vent. But sometimes you need to vent to someone because they have even if you're not looking for a solution, they can understand what you're dealing with. You just need somebody to basically tell you, hey, it's cool, this happens, it's no big deal.
So there's the two-sided, the two-way street of this is when, like you said, when you do want to just vent, make those intentions clear.
Yeah.
And if the person does that you like to talk, let's say you do like to talk to someone because they do offer good solutions, but at this time you don't want one.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes you need to talk about that.
Yeah.
Like, usually you give me great solutions. I really want it, but can we just, can I have 5 minutes of your time just to download?
That's also beautiful because you're asking for consent in that moment. Like, are you okay
Yes.
with receiving all this that I want to like get off of my shoulders? Because
and also you set a time limit.
Yeah, that's
which
I used to do this with Jen actually. She would come home from work and she'd start venting about work. And what was it I told you? You had like half an hour or an hour, and I was like, then we're done. We're not doing this anymore.
Yeah, and it's a reasonable border, whatever you want to call it, is to say, like, and on both sides, the listener or the speaker can say, okay, after 5 minutes, cut me off. Because if I can't express this in 5 minutes, then
yeah, well, because really, the reason I did it like with Jen and stuff was because, I do it too. It's like it's easy to just talk in a circle.
Yes,
you gripe, you go back, something triggers you back to the beginning of it, and then you just start again and again, and it's no good for either party at that point, Yeah. But what I was getting at before also was like very much. It's nice. It's just a nice move to kind of be like, because you don't know what somebody else's, state they're in. Maybe they're not in a place to where like they can really handle the venting. Maybe they've had a rough day or they're dealing with something of their own or something, So sometimes they're just like, hey, I'd love to, but I can't, So it's nice if you walk into it telling your intentions, because then that gives them the opportunity to, like, hey, can I vent to you for a couple minutes? And the person can then say, this is a really bad time, or yeah, no problem. What is it? Or whatever. So, it's just a considerate move also.
The proverbial bouncing the basketball between people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like, I have a question. I hand the basketball over. You give me the answer. You hand it back to me. We go back and forth. And actually use that visualization of that analogy often. Whenever I'm trying to respond to someone, especially via text, I'm very cautious and I try to be very cognizant of listening and understanding what they're looking for and what they need.
Yeah, it's a lot harder via text unless the person straight out asks you also,
Yes.
If somebody just starts in and you're just like, I don't know what to do with this. Like, do you want answers or suggestions, or do you want, you just want me to shut up and just let you vent? What's going on here?
But I think a lot of disagreements and little disputes and arguments in relationships can be prevented with a couple of these little steps.
That's so true. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and especially with the topic, if one person tends to be a fixer, is to accept that and to have a conversation about it at some point. Now, not everyone's going to be open to it because they're going to think you're accusing them of doing something wrong. And it's like, well, it's about the timing. And again, being the right size for the situation and being able to say, that, all right, sometimes I if somebody doesn't allow you to respond, then that's also an opportunity to maybe reevaluate your relationship.
Yeah. Well, also, I want to say from the fixer standpoint, you also, like, if you're a fixer by nature, be careful in your wording, because there's wording that can be put someone on the defensive or essentially be inflammatory. Like if someone is like, well, I did this, and I would have done this, then you're airing, like, that makes them feel like you're, like Henno had said earlier, that makes them feel like you're coming at them from an era of superiority.
Right.
Or
argumentative too.
Right,
yeah.
like, I'm smarter than you, well, I wouldn't have let them do that. And we all do it.
Yeah.
Every one of us does that, whether we mean to or not. At some point in a conversation, we always pull the, well, I would have done this, and
Right.
but be careful with that kind of stuff, because like I said, or like Henno just said, it can really, when you mentioned about relationships and how it can cause arguments, that was the first place my brain went, was with that, is when someone comes in and says, I did this, and well, I would have done that, and be like, well, I'm sorry, I'm not you, blah, 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 and it's like, nyah, 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 at each other at that point, and it's, with no one had that intention walking into it, but it's just that fast to put somebody on the defensive or counter-offensive, if you will, because they're taking a step back, but then they're also coming at you, so, and there's no win in that for anybody. So, just, again, as we've talked plenty of times on here, choose your words wisely and be careful with what you're saying, and try to, if you need to take a second, take that second before, and reword it in your own brain. As Jen's talked about, I've said for years, the Rolodex, maybe the first thing that pops into your head's not the best thing you need to say right now, like, okay, you know what? Do I want to fight?
Exactly.
Like, there's an episode of Married with Children where Peg, I believe she asks Al, like, how she looks or something like that, and it shows him like it's a computer screen, and basically if I say this, here are the possible outcomes, kind of a thing. And it's like, try to run that in your head sometimes, because whether it's work relationships, friendships, romantic relationships, whatever it is, it's like, really kind of maybe take that second and play the potentials out a little bit there to, like, is this what I really want to say right now? Because
thank goodness for texting, so I can edit myself.
I don't know. Once it's out there, it's out there.
True. But I do edit a lot.
Yeah.
I'm one of those people that has the ... and it's up there for like 10 minutes while I'm crafting my answer.
Yeah. I do that a lot too, actually. So.
Well, the article goes on to talk about... We weren't finished. She just talked about being a fixer. So, the lesson I learned about being a fixer is that by trying to fix everyone's problems, you are not allowing the person you are trying to fix to grow into their best version of themselves. Being a fixer and taking on others' pain is also emotionally draining and not conducive to your mental health and well-being. I came to this realization at multiple points in my life. However, the turning point for me was when I felt utterly helpless in a situation. Many years ago, my sister experienced infidelity in her long-term relationship while living in another country. Having also lived away from home and been cheated on, my heart literally was breaking for her. Knowing the pain she was probably feeling, the insecurities, shame, hurt, betrayal, anger, sadness that was pulsing through her blood. Felt as if it was pulsing through mine. Knowing all too well the pain that was coming to her in the coming weeks and the months ahead as she pieced her life back together. It felt like a dagger in my heart. And I just wanted to make it go away. But there was nothing I could do to take it away from her. I was 1,000 miles away, and rehashing my own experience with infidelity wasn't going to help her any, or my current relationship. She had to process it, grow through it, just like so many others, and I could literally not fix it. I felt hopeless. It was then that I came across this beautiful story of the butterfly all those years ago. You may have heard a version before, but I had to keep this one because it was so powerful. The site I copied it from is no longer on the internet, so the author is unknown, but it needs to be shared. Once upon a time, a young girl was playing in her grandmother's garden when she noticed some butterfly cocoons getting ready to open. She watched the first butterfly trying to come out of its home. It struggled and took a long time. By the time the butterfly got out, it was exhausted. It had to lay on the tree branch and rest a while before it could take flight. The little girl felt so terrible for the little butterfly, who had to go through so much of a struggle just to get out of his cocoon. When the little girl saw the second cocoon getting ready to hatch, she didn't want to go through what the first butterfly did, so she helped open the cocoon for herself and saved him from the struggle. But the second little butterfly died when the first little butterfly, who had fought so hard, took off into the sky. Distraught, the little girl ran to her grandmother crying, "What happened? Why did the second butterfly die?" she asked. Her grandmother explained that butterflies have a liquid in the core of their body. As they struggle to get out of the cocoon, that liquid is pushed in the veins of the butterfly to its wings, where it hardens and makes the wings strong. If the butterfly doesn't push and pull and fight to get out of its cocoon, his wings won't be strong enough to fly, and the butterfly will die. Without the struggle, there are no wings, grandmother said as she stroked her granddaughter's hair. Just like it would be with you, child. In life, you will go through hard times, but it's the hard stuff, the struggle, that will help you grow and help you learn to fly. But won't it hurt? Asked the little girl. Sometimes things will hurt. Sometimes things will be hard. But one day it'll all be worth it, and you'll learn from your struggles, and they'll teach you how to fly. Struggles make us stronger. They teach us, they empower us, they connect us. Do not take away someone's opportunity to grow by trying to fix them or rescue them from their trials. Without the struggles in their life, they wouldn't have their wings. At that point in my life, my view on being a fixer shifted. My sister made it through stronger, more beautiful, and happier than ever, and I did not do one thing to fix it. So although I'm still an empath and still feel all the feels, I have accepted and embraced that letting someone experience their own struggle is one of the most empowering things I can do for them. She kind of goes on and talks a little bit more about it, but I think that's a good point to kind of wrap up on.
Great message.
Yeah, it really is. And it's one that I kind of wanted to make sure that we put out there into the universe tonight. On so many different levels. It's to be a good friend is not necessarily to take away all the pain and take away struggles and everything, but to be a good friend, sometimes all it takes is just standing by and just being there. That's it. That's all you gotta do. And holding back and just stand there.
This is going to sound weird when I say it, but it's like, be the tool, not the mechanic.
Yes.
You know?
Yes. No, that makes complete sense.
Yeah. It's like, be something they can use to help themselves, basically, but don't do it for them, kind of a thing, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Which is hard. It's so hard. And I'm sure anyone listening that's a parent especially is going to go, you know, is going to be like, it's so hard, you know, because I'm sure it is. Just even being an uncle, you know, like I've seen my nephews and nieces over the years do stuff, and I've tried to help and whatever. And then it's like I said, just sometimes you're just like, I just gotta let you walk right into that wall and then go, okay, you're going to do it again. And when they go, nope, go good, you know, and that's all you can do sometimes. Because they got to learn, you know, again, you know, babies fall, they get back up, they try again. You know, eventually we walk. So, you know, we, if your parent just holds your hands and, you know, lets you move your feet, that's not necessarily teaching you balance. So, you know.
A friend of mine is going through some really rough stuff right now with his 15-year-old.
Yeah.
The 15-year-old is becoming violent and very combative.
Yeah.
And it's becoming quite difficult and dangerous because there's some little ones in the household at the same time. And he doesn't know what to do. And he's at a loss. He's tried everything. They've tried counseling. They've tried, you know, talking with him. They've tried being strong with him. They've tried tough love with him. And it's so hard when you're in those types of situations because people do need an opportunity to make mistakes.
Yeah.
But at some point you do need to step in and offer a hand and kind of help nudge them on a better path. So it sounded like today that he was going to call the hospital and have him admitted.
Yeah.
Mm.
Which I'm sure was heartbreaking. I'm sure that's a very, very difficult decision to make.
Yeah. It's incredibly hard on the whole family, and
Sure.
I can't even imagine being in that position. But when we talked, I told him, I said, you've got to take care of his health and your health and the health of your family.
Yeah.
Safety has to come first.
Right. It's similar in ways to, like having an elderly family member and making a decision to like put them in a nursing home or, some sort of where they can have help, that you just can't provide, or maybe they're a danger to themselves by living alone at this point or whatever. It's horrible, but there are, like you said, sometimes you hit that extreme to where you're just like, this is what we have to do, and hopefully it works out, Wow.
So sometimes you do have to step in.
Yeah.
And, especially when you're dealing with someone who is not as mentally or physically capable, whether being a young person, an older person, or someone who has issues that are beyond the norm. So there are some times that you do have to step in and help.
Sure.
But for the most part, it's better to just assist when asked to assist, offer, but don't push, and just be available. Yeah. I think that's the best thing we can do for each other, is just be available.
Well, it is amazing too, because, for years and years, you didn't really, you didn't really hear that a lot from people. Hey, I'm here if you need me or whatever kind of a thing. And it's become more and more prevalent now. And I love that I'm seeing it even on like Twitter and stuff, you see it, or Facebook even, like people who don't really know each other, just like, you see posts all the time where people are like, hey, I just want to put this out there. If anybody needs somebody, I'm an ally kind of a thing, and it's so nice to see. And I've seen people and heard of people using it, and I've done it myself where, like I said, I've talked with people that I don't know anything about them, but they'll just post something about like, is anyone out there available to talk or something like that. And I'll just be like, hey, how can I help kind of a thing. It's so nice to just know, like I said, being diagnosed with depression, the thing that felt the nicest to me was when the doctor was like, you aren't alone. Like, even though realistically I knew that, I know tons of people suffer from depression, but it's still, there's something about, like in that case, it's, something about a doctor saying, hey, this is a true statement. And, it is always, it's just nice to know somebody's got your back, or whatever out there. So, cause we all want to forge our own paths, but it is nice to know that if you stumble, somebody will help you back up. Yeah. Kind of a thing.
And to kind of buttonhole it a bit, in the case of my brother-in-law, he knew he had places to go and people who would help him. All he had to do was say hi. He needed it.
Yep. All
he had to do was just let us know, and we would have been there in a nanosecond. We were there his entire life to help him out. And it ultimately came down to, this is the path that he chose and the path that he wanted to walk and he needed to walk. And it's sad and it's hard and it's painful and makes us all angry and frustrated, because help was so close. Yeah. It was within his reach.
Yeah. It's similar,
he chose not to.
Yeah, the way like with overdose deaths and suicides, there's a very through line of everybody around. It's like, if they had just called, I would have helped, or I told them I would help them if they need it, and it's so hard to process, because we all generally would help our family and friends in those situations. It's so hard to understand the fact that they didn't want or couldn't see that they needed help.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
it's such a hard thing to process, because all we can do is process I would have helped. I would have,
Yeah.
so it's really hard. I've seen so many people go through it now, in my own life, and now with you with this and everything. And it's lather, rinse, repeat. Every time one of these kind of things happen, you hear the same stuff. And I'm not dismissing it in any way. It's just that it is the truth. We all probably would, no matter what it is, we would probably have, somebody in your friends or family would have helped you, kind of a thing. But there are a lot of people who don't feel like they need it, or don't feel like that it's true, or whatever, so it's tough. But that's why, we talk all the time on here is keep reaching out to people. If you tell them a million times, I'm here for you, maybe when they do have that moment, maybe it will click in their head that you are there for them, or something. You never know. But there's, like you said, Jen, there's going to just be times where people walk a path where all the potential help in the world and all the whatever, it's not going to matter.
Yeah.
It's sad. It's too bad. Hopefully, nobody listening will walk that path, but, what can you do? I mean, we all have to choose our own stuff.
Well, at this point, I'm going to open it up to everybody out there. If you'd like to continue the conversation, you know what to do. We are here for you. Just have to reach out. If you'd like to continue the conversation with me, you can find me on Twitter at Jen's Crazy Life. That's Jen with the G. If you'd like to reach us, you can reach us via our website at the Crazy Life Podcast .weebly.com. You can also reach us via email at the Crazy Life Podcast at outlook.com. If you'd like to hear more from me, you can also hear me on another show called Shake the Sheets, and you can find that at shakethesheets.com is the website. I do a pop culture talk podcast with my co-host Nate. We just have a lot of fun and a lot of chit-chat about a lot of pop culture and fun topics and stuff. And with that, Henno, how can they reach you?
You can find me on Twitter at Ida Henno, and my Facebook protest lasted about a week.
Oh yeah, I meant to ask you about that, because I thought this would be a great place to ask you about it, on this podcast, because you mentioned last week that it was something to make you how it affected your life essentially. So what made you go back?
Well, for one thing, I really wanted to share some wildflower photos on Instagram, and it links up to my Facebook account.
I'll say this, at least your reason was good. At least it was, I'm so glad that it was for wildflowers and not initially for politics.
Yeah, and there was a bunch of times where I just wanted to just scream something political, and I was like, you know what? I just want to do something pretty and also something fun, which I love is my Thoughts of Dog calendar, which has been my most favorite day calendar I've ever gotten. I never turn those. They usually just sit on a shelf somewhere until they end the year, and they end up in the garbage.
The only one I've only had a couple that I ever used. One was a Gil Elfgren pinup one. For those who don't know, I love pinup art, like the old style pinup art of Gil Elfgren and those types. And the other was the Far Side one that I had. The comic book,
great. Yes.
Which, by the way,
awesome.
if you're a fan of the Far Side, Gary Larson posted 2 new strips on his website yesterday. They're the first ones he's done since he retired from the Far Side. Sorry, Henno, I hijacked your talk
that was my reason, and it was good for me to do. The other part of it was also that Facebook actually had paid for an internal audit, and the day before the audit was released, the groups that were kind of initiating the boycott had a meeting with Facebook, and it was horrible. And they had nothing but excuses, and they had nothing but spin and all this stuff.
Yeah.
And it sounded like they didn't care. And then the next day, the audit came out, and it was scathing. and it had a lot of recommendations that they will be implementing, and they are the right recommendations. And it just basically showed how they legitimately needed to change things. And what was nice is having that week away allowed me to at least put a few things in perspective about what I want to put out there. And I'm still going to post political things, but I don't need to do it quite as often as I have.
Fair enough.
Yeah. So, and coming out probably in about a week or so, if you're listening to this, we're going to check out Moving the Needle. We've got our, what are we going to call it? We're going to call it Earworms 2 Eclectic Bugaboo.
Nice.
That's great. I love that title.
That's awesome.
That's
Another
awesome.
music show.
Yeah. I dig that. You can find me on Twitter at Stunami. You can find my other podcast at salty_language or at saltylanguage.com. That show's not safe for work, so be careful, who you're listening to it around. And we just talk about just life and pop culture and just kind of whatever, pops into our heads. This show can also be found on Twitter at The Crazy Life Pod, where I post when new episodes go up. You can find us on Facebook at facebook.com/group/crazylifepodcast. What am I missing here? Oh, we're part of the Tangent Bound Network, which can be found at tangentboundnetwork.com. So please go check out other shows on that network. And, as usual, and we've said already on here, if you need help, please reach out. There are all sorts of ways to find help. And, again, if money is an issue, there's support groups online and different stuff, other free resources, or things out there to help you. So please reach out if you need it. And on the flip side of that, of course, please reach out to your friends and just let them know that you care. You're thinking about them. Just see if they need anything. Just check in from time to time with people. And, echoing what Jen said, if anyone out there, especially if it's late at night or whatever, and you just need, someone to vent to or whatever, or to talk to about this kind of stuff, hit me up on Twitter. I'm usually off and on through the night. So, through the daytime, probably not going to get much of a response, but usually sleeping. But, I am here if anyone wants to reach out, whether it's that or, if you follow me on Instagram or wherever you follow me, if you need to talk, I'm here for you. And then of course, as I say every week, please be kind to one another. Let's keep trying to practice kindness and empathy, for each other. And for the love of Jeebus, please socially distance. I'm not going to tell you to wear a mask, but wear a mask and and try to avoid giant crowds of people, seriously. Like, just let's all try to do our part here, and try to get these numbers back down. Cause yeah, it makes me so sad because, so many people seem to be taking the numbers right now, just kind of like, whatever. And it's like, no, people are dying or going through, like, someone I'm sort of friends with on Instagram has had, they had COVID 3 months ago is when they got, and they still are waking up in the middle of the night, gasping for air off and on. They still off and on have fevers from it. They still can't breathe right. It's like, we don't know the long-term effects of this stuff. The long-term effects of this could be really bad. So let's just do our part, So there you go. I'll step off the soapbox now. And with that, I don't know. That's all I got.
All right, everybody, go out there. I would say hug your loved ones, but maybe just tell them that you love them right now.
Yeah.
Save the hugging for when things calm down, I guess. But definitely share the love, not the COVID. Go out there, have a great week. Bye.